Mr. Chair.
Here.
Representatives Kesto.
Yes. Here.
Heisey.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
LaFontaine.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Lipton.
Here.
Irwin.
Here.
Clemente.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from our December 5th meeting. So moved by Representative Heisey. Without objection, those meeting minutes will be approved. And we do have all members present. Okay, we're going to continue our testimony from this past Thursday, where we took up House Bills 4271, 5104, and Senate Bill 660. And we're going to start off by asking each of the bill sponsors or a representative of them to come forward to explain any changes to the bill since we last met. I'd like to start with House Bill 4271, Representative Colton, and joining we have on House Bill 5104, Representative Kowal. Good morning, and would you please share with the committee any changes in the substitute?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. In this substitute bill, we created a definition of marijuana-infused product because there was some dispute as to whether inactive substances could be separated from active ingredients. This way, the patient can still have access to that alternative delivery method without putting a significant burden on law enforcement. So what we've done is to actually go from usable marijuana equivalent to 1 ounce of usable marijuana is equivalent to 16 ounces of marijuana-infused product if sold in solid form, 7 grams of marijuana-infused product if in a gaseous form, and 72 fluid ounces of marijuana-infused product if in a liquid form. And that way, you know, the law enforcement prosecutors don't have to, I guess there are means of testing, but this is a much simpler and cleaner way for them to go in enforcing the law. So patients and caregivers can have a total of 2.5 ounces combination of usable marijuana or marijuana-infused product. Okay, what else did we do? This has been changing by the minute, so bear with me. Okay, in this sub, also patients are allowed to manufacture infused products for their own use. Caregivers can manufacture infused products for patients to whom they are registered. Provisioning centers can manufacture infused products. And except during manufacture and consumption, all infused products must be labeled with the weight of product, name of manufacturer, date of manufacture. If receiving from a caregiver or provisioning center, it has to have the date the transaction occurred and the name of the caregiver and the provisioning center. And there are also transfers, language regarding transfers so that the product can get back and forth to the provisioning centers and to the patients.
Thank you, Representative Kowal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you for considering this issue. This is not just a legal issue. This is a patient care issue, and as you can see, we have people here that need your help. The substitute H3 on 4271 includes some of the following changes. It makes testing for contaminants mandatory and strengthens language for patient safety. Removes cultivation so provisioning centers aren't growing, only collecting overages. Requires provisioning centers to adhere to local health department regulations when preparing medibles. Eliminates remaining conflicts with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. Tightens up language to make sure that provisioning centers are subject to non-medical marijuana-related laws and ordinance like business taxes, building codes, like if there were any other business in your community. Removes language having law dictate signage rules and having it fall on municipalities to determine what those might be. And there are some statutory prohibitions, for instance, not promoting the non-medical use of marijuana in signage. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and I'd like to thank both of you for your ongoing work on this, not only in the many months leading up to today, but also in some pretty intensive work since our last committee meeting. Are there any questions about either of these bills? Representative Johnson.
Thank you. Representative Colton, the mandatory testing, would that be done by independent labs or would that be government-run labs?
It would be done by independent labs that have some sort of certification, not by a government lab.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Representative Heisey.
Is the MML and MTA okay with these changes as well, Rep?
In some cases, neutral. You know, they're kind of aware of it. This is very different. So I'm not sure what the. Hold on, I need to consult my staff real quickly. Nick.
The MML is on board with most of these changes. There are 2 local control issues.
Okay, but we haven't really heard from the MTA. We have a neutral from the MTA, but we've got the Michigan Municipal League on board with some of the changes.
Some of the changes. Okay, are they here today? Are they going to testify on these changes or no? Do you know, Rep. Colton?
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Representative Irwin.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to thank both of you because I know that there's been some hard work that's gone into these bills in the first place, but also some last-minute negotiation to figure out how to make everything in these bills extremely clear so that the municipalities and also particularly law enforcement has a good sense of what they're dealing with without having to send everything to a lab for testing. And I understand all that, and I appreciate that. The one final thing that I wanted to raise along the lines of trying to make sure everything was absolutely as clear as possible so that there was no misunderstandings on the back end, which is, I think, one of the real benefits of doing this bill, is that in the definitions clause, starting on page 3 and going over to page 4 of what I think is the final sub here, we're looking at the definition of a seedling. And it says that the seedling is a plant that has no flowers and it's less than 12 inches in height and 12 inches in diameter. My concern is exactly how is the height of this seedling going to be measured? And I'm going to ask the question of would you, Representative Colton, as the bill sponsor, be supportive of an amendment that I'm intending on offering, which I think you've seen already, which would stipulate that the height is counted from the part of the plant that is actually above the dirt. So, in other words, or it is not the actual root structure in the case where they're not using dirt. My concern is that, of course, you might have a plant that is only a few inches tall, but might have a several inch or maybe even foot-long root structure. And I don't want there to be any confusion on the back end should there be issues with law enforcement about what is and what is not a seedling based on people trying to measure or not measure the root structure.
Yeah, I think in the spirit of that, I mean, when we're all thinking of this, we're thinking of, you know, I think of the height of a tree as, or a seedling or anything as what's above the ground, but I never thought of possibly law enforcement coming in and measuring the depth of the roots or even the length of the roots, so I would be okay with such an amendment.
Okay, well, I'm intending on offering that amendment later, and I just think that it's an element of clarification. It's sort of in line with all the elements of clarification that have led to the modifications that you're bringing forward, so thank you.
All right, Vice Chair Kesto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, representatives. My question is, you have the labs testing the marijuana, but do the labs have to get some sort of certificate or license, and who would be regulating them, I guess is my question, if anybody. I don't know if anyone is. But
Yeah, we want to see it done in certified labs. One problem we're having, though, is there isn't one clear certifying agency that certifies such labs, but we're requiring some sort of certification, external certification, not just self-certification.
Where do they get that from now?
I'm actually not sure where they get that from. I can't answer that. I'm not prepared to answer that. I could get that information for you.
Okay. Thanks, Representative.
Okay. With that, there are no further questions. I thank you both. Thank you. Okay. And next up, regarding House Bill 660, we have from Senator Roger Kahn's office, Becky Eckerson, accompanied by former Speaker Chuck Perricone, regarding any changes relative to Senate Bill 660. And before you start, I just want to point out, and I should have done so before we started, in addition to this room, we also have two other rooms, overflow rooms in rooms 326 and 307. Additionally, due to several conflicts with other committees, you will see members coming and going, as we've already started to see. It's not from a lack of interest in the subject matter before us, just a lot of conflicting committee schedules and votes. So with that, welcome to both of you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. The H1 that you have before you has a few different changes. The first being the possession limit for marijuana was in the bill as 2 ounces per 30 days. That has been changed to be concurrent with the current Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, and it has been increased to 2.5. There were some questions about from law enforcement about how pharmaceutical grade marijuana would be differentiated between homegrown marijuana, so we put a provision in to keep the pharmaceutical grade marijuana in the prescription bottle. There was also a question of what department would be promulgating rules and operating the program. So we made it very clear that Laura will be operating the program, and we defined the department with that. And then as far as background checks for employees of a pharmaceutical grade company, we made that concurrent with current occupations that require background checks.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions? Representative Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the definition section on page 6 of the draft, section 7, subsection E, which relates to the synthetic marijuana products that we've seen on the market that have really been, unfortunately, very successful given our current policy of prohibition. And there were some changes made to the law in 2012. And my question is the language that you're proposing in 660, does it line up with, or does it include the language, the expanded language that the legislature included in the law in 2012 when we expanded the definition of synthetic marijuana?
In the Senate committee hearing, we did have questions about that. There was an S3 that took care of that. We do have Tom DeYoung here, the bill drafter, if you'd like him to expand on that issue.
Sure.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Tom DeYoung with the Service Bureau. Yeah, that issue specifically came up. When the bill was originally drafted, it did address synthetic compounds, and that was pointed out. We did remove it, as stated in the S3, so that now lines up with what was done prior to deal with those synthetic components, so it's not a problem in the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize. I wish I was more prepared to ask this question. It literally just came to my attention, but it's been brought to my attention that in Section 8153, line 26, says something to the effect of cannabis shall not be prescribed to an individual less than 18 years of age. And my question is, going back, I guess, to the last committee hearing, if you remember, Mr. Speaker, last time I'd asked that if all 3 of these bills were to pass and the feds actually define marijuana as Schedule 2, would there be any conflicting provisions or anything that would we have any issues? And I guess my question here is, would that, assuming again that all of these pass, would that prevent, particularly with the COAL bill, would this prevent those under the age of 18 being prescribed non-smokable marijuana or uses of marijuana?
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate the question. This deals directly with the pharmaceutical grade as opposed to the other grades involved. So there is a distinction, and for the pharmaceutical grade, that minimum age requirement would be in place. There's some flexibility on that, of course, with additional physician oversight, perhaps. But because you're an attorney, I'm going to punt to another attorney, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and ask the bill drafter to comment on that lasting impact, because I know how you guys think. And I'm already a recovering politician. I don't need to become an attorney as well.
Sure.
Yeah, regarding the age 18, that, of course, this bill runs parallel to the Michigan Marijuana Act, so it actually has different requirements. A person would still be eligible, as they are now under the Michigan Marijuana Act, for a person who is less than 18. This bill, at this point, however, is different than that. It does have the 18 age limit, although I understand that that is subject to some further discussions at this point. But there is a distinction, but again, they would be eligible under a different program, but not under this one.
Okay.
Okay, so just so I can clarify, then this would not prevent them from getting the medication that they need.
No, this would prohibit a prescription to a person under age 18 at this point. So,
okay,
but it wouldn't. If your question is, would it prevent them in conceptually? No, because they would be eligible under a different program.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Okay. Next, I'm going to ask Sergeant Amy Daner to join us. She may be in an overflow room. We'll give her just a moment here. There she is. Wishing to speak as to all three bills. We have, I'll allow you to expand on the position, but representing the Michigan State Police. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Sergeant Amy Diener. I'm a legislative liaison with the Michigan State Police. I will be very brief this morning. I know a lot of people would like to speak as well. The two substitutes for 5104 and 4271, I know kind of were redone overnight, and we've had significant work done on this in the last 3 weeks with this work group. We're working with both sponsors' offices. The bills as currently written, prior to seeing these subs this morning, we opposed simply from the perspective of what they were asking our forensic labs to do was not possible. As far as having, I'll use the example of marijuana brownies. We can't separate out eggs, flour, sugar from THC. Our labs simply test for the presence of THC and then the aggregate weight, which was kind of the focus of the Carruthers decision. However, I think through some of our work, we've kind of come to a something that appears to be a workable solution. I think we're very close. I don't think we're exactly spot on yet. We're looking for something that's clear for law enforcement, something that is clear for the patients, and something that is clear for purposes of interpretation as well. So the only other thing I might add is that one of the lingering questions that we have is switching gears on Senate Bill 660 is, and I don't have an answer for this, is if marijuana does switch to a Schedule II drug, we have had questions from people within our department as to why would they have to have a card for a Schedule II drug, and I simply don't have an answer for that. I would have to have a prescription for Vicodin or Oxycontin or something like that, but I would not necessarily have to have a card, which is led to a little bit of confusion on our end. Not something that we can't work through. I think we can, but that's a lingering question I simply just don't have the answer for. So to sum it up, again, the work that's being done with both sponsors' offices, I think we're very close to a solution that will be workable for everyone, taking into consideration that it's a complex issue. There's many moving parts to it, but looking at what some other states have done, taking into consideration what we can do forensically, and finding a mutual solution for everybody, again, I think we're very close.
Well, thank you, and I do appreciate your involvement throughout the process. And this has been a challenge, dating back a long period of time. And I'm wondering, going back to where we were with dispensaries, so this would take us back before the McQueen decision. Would it be your opinion? And granted, there may be things that continue to need some refining, but would this be a significant step, a dramatic step forward from where we were pre-McQueen as to dispensaries?
As far as making it more clear for everyone involved, sir?
Clarity, absolutely.
I think so. There would be a little more clarity here for everyone, law enforcement, obviously the dispensaries, the patients. You hit it on the head. I think it requires some more refining, but I think we are much closer to a solution that is clear to everyone, more so than we were before. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I think that's been the biggest challenge, from my perspective, has been the clarity or lack thereof. And so, thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Next up is David Brogren, representing Cannabis Patients United. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for letting me come today. Our group is a 501c4, and we've tried to stay directly into patient issues and what was best for the most number of people. We threw a neutral vote last Thursday, and subsequent to that, we've been involved in the stakeholders meetings, and I agree with the officer. We've seen tremendous give and take and compromise, and I think many of the issues that were of concern really have evaporated, and our group fully supports 5104, and we fully support 4172 at this point, and we urge you to pass them out of committee and the House.
Okay.
And if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next up, we'll invite Diane Ulrich and Chad and Colin Ulrich. Good morning.
We're here. Just let you know that we do use the oil. And we were told about a year ago that Colin could no longer be treated for his behaviors. He has Smith-Magenis syndrome, and they're terrible. He's shattered our windshield of our car before with his head. They're very extreme. We were told that the only thing that could work is medical marijuana. We thought about it. It took us almost a year, but we decided to go for it, and he was lucky enough to have seizures. And since then, he's had 3 seizures. He's been on it since this fall for almost 2 months. And the last 2 he has been able to stop. His brain has been able to stop. But I'd like to read a letter from his teacher. His teacher's very excited about this. She writes, "Dear legislators, I am writing you on behalf of Chad and Diane Ulrich, and most importantly, their son Colin. Colin has been a student in my classroom for students with moderate cognitive impairments for the past 3 years. I can't express enough how much I love and care about Colin and look forward to seeing him every morning. Despite his amazing sense of humor and never-ending hugs, being Colin's teacher has not always been easy. Colin has Smith-Magenis syndrome, which causes him at times to have explosive outbursts, prolonged tantrums, and engage in self-injurious behaviors. I'd like to think I know Colin well enough to predict what things will likely upset him, but with SMS, it is not always that easy. Colin can be in the greatest mood and within seconds change completely. If you look into SMS, you will find that these traits are not isolated to Colin, but are affecting several children across the country. Over the past 3 years, I have seen Colin's amazing family try to find any solution possible to help with Colin's unpredictable behaviors. He has shown small improvements with some medication, but never anything substantial. This fall, Colin's family made the decision to try medical marijuana as a last resort option suggested by his doctor. In the time that Colin has been taking medical marijuana, his behavior has been absolutely outstanding. He still has his fantastic personality, but it's as though the medical marijuana has made it possible for the explosive tantrums to disappear. Accomplishing schoolwork was an extremely difficult task for Colin in the past. Most activities resulted in banging his head on the desk or floor, yelling, or a tantrum. Colin has not refused to do his work more than 3 times since he began taking MMJ. Before taking MMJ, Colin refused his work more than 3 times in a 30-minute center rotation each morning. I now see Colin learning without interruptions for the first time in 3 years. I have been able to sit and teach him new things that he was unable to access before gaining control of his emotions and actions in the past. He has had 0 tantrums and is all around much happier than ever before. We need the oil. We have been in contact with 3 different psychiatrists, and because Colin's IQ is 40 and cannot tell them how he is feeling, they won't see him. This is our life. We can't even go to restaurants now. He doesn't attack our daughter. We need this. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, and thank you for being here. Next up is Stephen Sharp. Wishing to, well, we actually have both boxes checked. We have both boxes checked here, so I'll allow you to expand as far as position. But thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me testify this morning, Chair and Judiciary Committee. I'm here in support of House Bill number 5104. And I thank Rep. Caldwell for getting this going through the committees and that as of right now. I was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2010. And I used this oil, which I made, and it cured my colon cancer. I showed this to my doctors, my surgeons. They told me this was a home remedy. They said I made this in my kitchen, and I did. And this is the problem that the pharmaceutical companies have. So what I want to do is make sure that this moves along as fast as possible so that people have the opportunity to make their medicine out of the product that they've grown in their own home. The concentrate should be available to make and share with the patients of Michigan. It's very important to the MMMA that we voted in 2008 overwhelmingly. Attached is the photo of a marijuana leaf. I don't know if you have my packet still from last week or not. I do not have those pictures with me. But on those leaves, what it shows is a little ball. And this is the only place that the oil or CBD and THC is found on the plant. The rest of it could be used for flour, for building materials, for a compost pile. And the concentrates being ingested lasts much longer than smoking, but it takes both to help the patients. Smoking effects start almost immediately, and ingesting takes the 45 to 90 minutes. So the smoking will help take and alleviate some of the pains or illnesses that people have. And eating this is the best for the body. It lasts longer, 4 to 6 hours. The HB 5104 helps many people with their medical needs than just smoking. So please include this bill with HB 4271 to get the provisioning centers opened in Michigan so the patients and caregivers have a safe access to those important medicines made by cannabis. I've included letters in my file from some of my patients and people that I've worked with over the last 5 years. And what we have found is the oils are the most important. The concentrates are the most important part of this. But you can't make a concentrate without the product. So we need the provisioning centers open so that people have an access to this, a safe access to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Next up, Stephen Sharp. Or excuse me, we were just Stephen Sharp. Elaine Wumbolt. Elaine Wumbolt? Yes. Okay. Wishing to speak on a neutral position as to House Bill 4271.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Carter, thank you for the opportunity to address the House Committee regarding Bill 4271. This bill heavily supports the medical marijuana industry, patients, and caregivers. Once again, there is no regard for the protection of neighborhoods, communities, children, and private citizens living where the growing, processing, and distribution of medical marijuana occurs. There needs to be language written into this bill protecting all citizens. The bill needs language providing equality of law and not left up to local control. Some specific issues needed to be added to the bill. 1, prohibit medical marijuana provisioning centers and safety compliance facilities from being located in residential areas. 2, environmental air quality concerns must be mandated, protecting the air, health, and quality of life for residents in these areas. 3, pre-primary needs to be added to Section 7(1). I'm here today representing our residentially zoned neighborhood. There is a home on our street that is growing, processing, and distributing marijuana. The stench of the skunk odor has been coming from this property since January 2012. Along with the skunk odor comes all the byproducts of mold, fungus, pesticides, and anything else that's in the plants. The processing fumes have been released and blown into the neighborhood. These are toxic to anyone who has respiratory illnesses. These toxic fumes can become life-threatening, closing our windpipes and causing asthma attacks. I and 2 other property owners on our street have asthma. We have become prisoners in our homes. We have to keep our windows and doors closed. We cannot enjoy our property outside because we never know when the odor and processing may begin. Our neighborhood property values have dropped. Our quality of life has diminished, and it has greatly affected our health and caused fear for our safety. We have experienced firsthand the negative side of medical marijuana since the law has passed. Why are the rights and health of medical marijuana patients more important than the rights and health of non-medical marijuana citizens? I thank you for your time to allow me this testimony.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, wishing to speak in support of House Bills 4271 and 5104 is Mary Denning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mary Detling, and I'm here to speak in support of House Bills 4271 and 5104. First, to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a college graduate with a background in holistic remedies and nutraceuticals. I'm a mother of 1. I practice massage therapy in Ann Arbor. I live in Ypsilanti, and I'm a medical marijuana caregiver and a patient. I first became acquainted with medical marijuana through my massage practice a couple of years ago. I'm always looking for holistic and natural healing methods to work with my clients. And since learning a lot about that, I decided to devote a portion of my practice specifically to medical marijuana patients. Since then, I have learned a lot about this medicinal plant, and I now act as a consultant to medical marijuana patients and people who are thinking about becoming one. As a caregiver, I have many responsibilities, but first and foremost, it is my responsibility to provide clean, which means not moldy, safe, quality medicinal marijuana to my patients to suit my patients' specific needs and ailments. There are several different types of strains of marijuana that can provide different types of relief to different types of patients. You would recommend something different for somebody suffering from muscle spasms than you would for somebody suffering from neuropathy, or from somebody who is suffering from gastrointestinal problems and nausea. In addition, how you consume marijuana also can alter its effects. For example, I have a patient who suffers from lupus, arthritis, and fibromyalgia altogether. In short, she is in constant pain that will never go away. A couple years ago, on top of all this, she had a gastrointestinal problem that made it difficult to breathe and impossible to eat. She believes that tinctures saved her life. And now, tinctures are basically an extract using vegetable glycerin or alcohol to extract the cannabinoids from the flower, from the plant material. She found that by putting a few drops underneath her tongue allowed her to start eating again and therefore kept her off feeding tubes and kept her in a healing mode. Besides tinctures, this particular patient of mine prefers to eat can of butter products. She believes it helps with her ongoing gastrointestinal problems. She also likes to use topicals, which have no psychoactive effects and helps to ease the pain in her joints just by rubbing it on like a lotion. Another one of my patients has been struggling with pain issues for years and is on disability. He would prefer to vaporize the oils. He needs, for him, the extra strength and immediacy of the dosage is the only thing that relieves him of his pain and will allow him to lead a somewhat normal life. My third patient prefers sativas for her glaucoma. My fourth likes heavy indicas for his MS. My fifth prefers hybrids. All of them like different potencies. In addition to that, I've consulted with patients who've had cancer and have had benefits from using Rick Simpson oil. That, in particular, I had a patient that was using Rick Simpson oil to help her fight her cancer. And when the Court of Appeals ruling happened, she found out that it wasn't going to be as readily available. And you could see the fight. She lost the fight. She passed away, actually, last month. I've also talked to patients who've nibbled on medicated granola bars throughout the day because it's the only thing they can keep down. Another patient who was interested in consuming medical marijuana in any way other than smoking or inhaling it because she had never smoked anything in her life. There are patients who look for strains high in cannabinoids and low in THC. Basically, my point is that every patient is different. And as a caregiver alone, it is almost impossible for me to provide what each of my specific 5 patients need. Within keeping within the laws. So House Bill 4271 and 5104 together will allow patients of every variety the ability to choose what works for them. Specifically, House Bill 4271 will allow and regulate caregivers so that they can share resources. It doesn't talk about growing, but patients can then safely access a legal, quality variety of medicine that they need. It also protects agents who work so hard to educate and support their patients in achieving their health goals. It would also provide safety for agents of safety compliance places, making it easier to provide quality tested and clean products. Testing facilities already exist to tell us how much THC and other cannabinoids are in our flower and edible products. They also test for mold, so they make us do our job a little bit better as caregivers. I love the idea that it is controlled by the municipalities. Not every municipality is appropriate for having a provisioning center. Small towns, they can set their own rules, whatever they need to do, and that's important. As far as House Bill 5104, it would allow patients access to alternative delivery methods, because really, is smoking the best way to medicate yourself when you're using medical marijuana? Prior to the Court's Appeals rulings, when most caregivers agreed that concentrates, canna butter, and other extractions were preparations of the dried leaves and flowers and therefore protected under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, a lot of progress was made in creating cleaner, safer, more effective choices for consuming medical marijuana. All I'm asking is that you continue or protect us while we as caregivers and agents do what we're trying to do, which is support our patients and their health goals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Yep.
Next up, Matthew Abel, wishing to speak in support of all 3 bills, representing Michigan NORML. Overflow, okay. He'll be along just shortly. And then just to put our next person on notice so they can start to make their way this way, following Mr. Abel will be Sarah Sprungson. Okay, Mr. Abel, good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Cotter. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Matthew Abel. I'm a lawyer in Detroit. I'm also the executive director of the Michigan chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I'm here to speak in support of 4271 and 5104 and to express some concerns about 660. First, in the provisioning center bill, the definition of usable marijuana on page 4, I believe it is, page 5, it doesn't include the words compound, manufacture, salt, and derivative that are included as the definition of marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act. My concern is that if we leave those words out, that people may be prosecuted for possessing compounds, manufacturers, salts, or derivatives because they're not specified as being included in the resins or the extracts. So I would urge you to include those 4 words. There's a lot of language in the bill that would allow a provisioning center to accept transfers from caregivers or patients if the municipality allows it. I think that language is redundant. Either the municipality will allow a provisioning center or they will not. And if they do allow the provisioning center, there should be no additional requirement that they also allow transfers. You can't have a provisioning center without transfers. So I think some of that language is unnecessary. And that was, I believe, on page 5 of the draft I have. Also, I think a municipality should not be allowed to prohibit transporting. If they allow a provisioning center, they need to allow people to supply it and transport it away from there. On page 10, as Mr. Perricone indicated to me one day, all marijuana has mold on it, and this definition says detectable mold. I think we should add the language in harmful amounts. If there's detectable mold on everything, then nothing would be able to be sold. Mold in itself is not harmful. There are certain types of mold that are harmful and certain quantities that are harmful. Just the fact that it has mold, if Mr. Perricone is correct and all marijuana has mold, then nothing would be allowed to be sold. Further, on page 10, there's quite a confusing paragraph about the ratios of product, and I believe there, after the word product, there should be a period, and we don't need to go on to continue to define what that ratio means. I believe that ratio was adequately defined in the first part of that sentence. In 5104, the extracts bill, I also would add those 4 words, compound, manufacture, salt, and derivative. Unless we're going to strike them from the Controlled Substances Act, we need to allow patients and caregivers and provisioning centers to provide those items and not be prosecuted for it. And then in regard to 660, while it wouldn't take effect unless the federal government reschedules, and I personally think that's pie in the sky, but you know, someday ultimately the federal government will reschedule. I would urge that 660, because it's ahead of these other 2 bills, that it be tie-barred to the 2 bills. And as I've said before, I'm only willing to endure 660 or support it if we get the other bills. 4271 and 5104 will benefit patients today. 660 is something that may or may not benefit anyone sometime down the road. My concern with 660 is that although marijuana has been misclassified as a Schedule I drug since the 1970 Controlled Substances Act, even a Schedule II is not an appropriate place for cannabis. Schedule II requires a high potential for abuse. It requires current accepted medical use and treatment in the U.S., and that abuse may lead to severe psychological or physical dependence. There is not, I mean, while there may be some potential for abuse, there certainly is not a high potential for abuse. And also, that abuse, while it might lead to some mild or moderate psychological or physical dependence, it certainly will not lead to severe psychological or physical dependence. And I don't believe you will find any mental health professional who's honest about it to testify that that is the case. So I think it should come out of Schedule I, but to presume that it should go into Schedule II is presumptuous. And I think it should be perhaps not scheduled at all. I mean, the things that should be scheduled are tobacco and alcohol. Tobacco, we know, will kill you and has no medical use. Marijuana will not kill you and has medical use. It certainly should not be a Schedule I. I think it should be descheduled entirely. I urge the committee to pass these 2 bills, 4271 and 5104, Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Do we have Sarah, is it Spunkson? Okay, we'll move on. Joe Kane. Is this Sarah?
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I do have...
I have terrible handwriting, pardon me.
No problem at all. I have 2 cards here in support of House Bills 4271 and 5104.
Yes, sir.
You have down 2 to 5 minutes. If we can keep it at about 3, I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay?
Is this on?
It is.
On. I'm all about life sciences, really not about technicality, as you'll see. I like things that are alive. I like books. I learned to cook, to garden, and the way that so many people have from their mothers and from their grandmothers. I've spent the last 10 years of my life in college in human rights causes, and I am a patient and I am a caregiver, and I am not a nuisance to my community. People who are trapped in their house right now is my friend James. I can't cook. James doesn't have, the prognosis is he doesn't have the time for this bill to pass and for me to cart him up, for me to grow, because I'm not growing certain things because I don't want to be the next Carruthers because I have to work. My home is clean. I use natural and organic methods. If you don't have a dirty grow, you don't get problems with mold. If you don't grow certain varietals, you don't have those issues. And if I can't use the whole plant to make people better, I ask you, what is it that I do? Tell him to fill his lungs with a combustible substance that's only going to take the edge off. That's illegal at this point. I don't know how I feel that. I'm a patient. Part of me was cut out. My hair falls out. I'm lucky. It's going to take me a long time to fall victim from what slow starvation does. Eating a bit of butter or a bit of oil that I cook in my small grow in my small kitchen with my locally sourced organic butter is a good choice for me because it allows me to be hungry, which allows me to eat, which allows me to work and then go to school and then do more human rights work. So on that angle, I really think what people need is access and education, and I'm willing to give that. I'm willing to provide that through provisioning centers. There is a natural medium here, and it's from people here who have knowledge, and people like you who we vote for, and people like me who possess skills that are transferable from those holistic communities into policy, into admin. And what I know this far is that bad policy, ambiguous policy, scares people. It scares people like me who can read and can interpret laws, who do want to follow them, who do want compliance, who are in favor of regulations, and who are willing to satisfy us. But not really on 660, because I don't think I will ever, ever, ever agree that radiation is a better alternative than my natural methods in my kitchen. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, Joe Kane, representing. Can you explain the organization? We have multiple.
National Medical Marijuana Coalition and Citizens for Human Rights.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Wishing to speak in opposition to House Bills 4271 and Senate Bill 660?
Just 660. 4271 I support with some changes. The privacy issue, there's a routine and there are some language that addresses stopping a patient from buying too much marijuana on a rolling 10-day period. I oppose that because basically this data would be kept at individual sites, at individual provisioning centers. It wouldn't prevent a patient from in a rolling 10-day period from buying too much. It would simply report on that patient or report on that caregiver. So there would be, the patient may not even realize that they've exceeded the prescribed amount. The obvious solution is to have a central database that either says yes or no. Either that patient can buy the marijuana or the patient can't. We don't want our patients getting in trouble if they buy 2.75 ounces over a 10-day period. Some of our patients are very sick. Some of our patients have mental conditions, such as a common one is lupus. Patients have memory problems. They get holes in their memory. So if they walk in and they buy 2.75 ounces, we don't want the police in their homes. So the simple thing is to maintain a central database, and when that patient goes in and buys, and let's say they would exceed the amount, then the answer is no, you can't buy it. And that's the way, you know, most systems work. And so that's been my concern when I've been looking at these bills, is what will happen structurally when they're implemented. 5104 I support. The oil helps patients, especially our sickest patients, epilepsy, cancer, AIDS. This oil does a lot of good. So the privacy issue on 4172, and we support it fully, and 5104 we support. Got a lot of problems with 660. The first problem I have is the pretenses on which it was brought before the legislature. I look at the statements made by the principals, and the statements are that we're going to produce a pharmaceutical product. Brent Zettel, I think that's the way his name is pronounced, made that. He said, with no testing or standards, nobody knows what Michigan patients are smoking. We've reached the first cardinal rule of pharmaceutical manufacturing. It doesn't have any safety bells or whistles. Well, he's in a copper mine. He wants to grow marijuana in a copper mine. That's a single point of failure for our patients. But even more than that, it's poisonous. It didn't take me very long. I Googled it. I didn't do a lot of due diligence. I Googled it. That mine is one of the most contaminated places on earth. The levels of arsenic are hundreds of times allowed levels. The levels of radiation are hundreds of times. It's got chemicals in it like cobalt, that any exposure is terrible. Antimony is terrible. Actually, you know, when you look at this mine, we looked at core samples, which is the way you determine across the entire spectrum. And there's lots of other core samples, you know, lots of studies out there. I'm saying the data's not rare, where they actually drilled this mine out at various locations. And it was fairly consistent. If you look at the chart that I provided now, you know, we've got fungus and bacteria, and they made claims that there wasn't fungus and bacteria in the mine, but there is. There's lots of it. As a matter of fact, this gentleman here really liked bacteria, and when he described it, he described the pillars of bacteria, gram-negative bacteria. This is a picture of the fungus that's in the mine. Mines aren't sterile places, folks.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry, are you speaking to a particular location where this could potentially be grown under this bill?
This is the person that wants to grow our marijuana. Okay, this is Prairie Systems, who grows all of Canada's marijuana. And I think it's important to talk about this because, quite simply, you know, this company, if they had proceeded in their business endeavor, would have been supplying marijuana for thousands of people. And they would have been poisoning us because if you look at the studies, and that's what I like to do is the science, the first thing we got to look at is asbestos. The mine is full of asbestos, and when I looked at how they clean this asbestos up, asbestos materials are collected in bags, which are stored in a covered area adjacent to hazardous waste storage areas.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to the content of the bill. You're being speculative by assuming that this under the bill would be grown at a particular location. I think that's speculative at best, as the bill provides a framework by which this could occur at various locations.
I don't mean to joust with you here, Anita, but these are the people that paid the lobbyists who came to the legislature and promoted this bill. The one thing I would like to see, and I would ask the committee to do this for me, and I'll yield on this subject, is this company never grows marijuana for anyone. And I ask you to look at this study because this company, this corporation who grows marijuana in Canada for people, came to the state of Michigan and asked you and deceived you fine folks and told you that we do things, we grow pharmaceutical weed, and that was a lie. The very pretense that anything that they do is pharmaceutical is insane. They would have killed people. They would have killed people if they grew the marijuana in this mine. So I would ask you that at the very least that this company be excluded from ever doing anything with patients, because that's just wrong. And again, I'd like to say that I do support 4271. I do support SB 660, and you know, with the privacy change. And I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, are there any questions? Thank you. Let's see. Next up, wishing to speak in support, Nicole Hernandez. Nicole Hernandez. We'll go ahead and call the next name as well to give them time to arrive. Wishing to speak, Steve Green. Nicole Hernandez or Steve Green? Okay. Here we have, is this Nicole Hernandez? Yes. Good morning. Good morning. Wishing to speak in support of the bill, but we don't have a bill number, so I'll allow you to explain.
4271 and 5104.
Thank you.
Forgive me, I'm a little nervous. I've never spoken in front of all of you guys before, so give me a moment.
Please be comfortable. Take your time.
Perfect. I'm actually not opposing these bills for the following reasons. As it stands right now, there's a connection that needs to be made between a caregiver and a patient in order for them to obtain medication. The patient has to relinquish a lot of personal information to the caregiver in order to get that person to be their caregiver, social security number, address, and what they're suffering from. I believe that if a person has just been told that they have AIDS or hepatitis C or some really bad debilitating condition, that they might not want to relinquish that to someone and not have the means to grow it themselves at their house, which means they're kind of stuck in a catch-22. They would have to give up their medical information and personal information to obtain the caregiver in order to get the medication if they can't grow it themselves. The 4271 would allow a patient to obtain medication without that connection. They wouldn't have to get the caregiver if they don't want to. There's a lot of identity theft going on right now, and I believe that there's the chance that someone could become enemies with the person that they were the patient or the caregiver for and take the personal information and do with it what they will. 4271 will allow a person to keep their privacy. They will allow a person to just maintain their lifestyle and obtain their medication privately without giving that up to anyone that they normally wouldn't really give that information up to. The extract bill, myself, I believe, should pass. There's the smoking, like everybody said here, is the least suitable way to smoke it. The government has done a lot of studies on it, and they've done studies for the smoking in regards to nausea and driving. A lot of the studies for the cancer and other ailments have been done in concentrated form. To take that away from people when they definitely need it is wrong. As we've seen a lot of children sit up here that definitely need it, and we can't force this gentleman here to smoke anything. I don't think that would be right. And that would be like saying you have, a really bad headache and you're not allowed to take the medication for it. A lady sat up here before and referenced it as heartburn medication, and I think that was a great reference to say you're suffering from severe heartburn, but we're not going to give you that medication because we don't agree with the methods or the way that it was brought about to you. So in regards to both of those bills, I believe that you guys should pass them. There's really no reason not to. I know that there's language, but to say, we're going to give you the Medical Marijuana Act but not give you the means to obtain your medication, I think is kind of a double-edged sword. You're going to allow a person to have it, but then not allow a person to have it. The laws that stand right now, I am a dispensary owner myself, collective, however you want to say it, but I'm also a medical marijuana patient. I have wasting syndrome. My doctor and I had a discussion last week that said if I lost a pound a day for the next 99 days, I would not be sitting in front of you guys today. I can't smoke anywhere I go. It's not that I can get in my vehicle and light like a cigarette or stand in a restaurant. I don't eat. And if I don't consume medical marijuana, I won't eat. I've been days without eating because I just don't get the appetite. The extracts give me the appetite that I need. Smoking gives me an immediate appetite. However, I can't, like I said, just walk in anywhere and smoke. The people that I deal with in my collective, now as the law stands, I can't deal with everybody. I have people that walk into my establishment daily that I have to turn away with tears in my eyes because I can't help them and tell them, unfortunately, you have to obtain your medication via black market because I can't do it or I'll be put in jail. So we're turning our backs on people that are actually looking for help in different ways because for one way, shape, or form, the pharmaceuticals aren't working for them. So we've turned to a different herbal remedy or home remedy to suffice us, and they're not able to get that right now. I'm not able to get that right now. I have to smoke, and smoking, I already have emphysema, and I sit and smoke, and then I cough, and then I hack up stuff, and it's really not healthy for me, but that's the way that I have to consume it, or I'm not going to eat, and in 99 days, if I don't eat, I won't be here. So it's kind of one of, it's seeing is believing, and I don't know if anybody has anyone on this committee that they're close to that has an ailment that the pharmaceuticals aren't working for, or is unable to eat and needs the extracts, or has, seizures and they're mending it with medical marijuana. But I believe that you should probably all go out and introduce yourselves to someone that has those problems because you would probably appreciate it a little more. There are a lot of people out here suffering right now that do not like the pharmaceuticals. They have tons of side effects. How many of you watch commercials and see, Zantac, and then in the end they've got a mumbling man going, those are side effects. Those are things that are going to go wrong with you. You know, cannabis in the studies of the government, they really don't have any side effects. My husband's on Marinol, and the side effects, one of the side effects said something about enjoying life. And I can email you these side effects on a Marinol. So there were no side effects. The only one said that something about enjoying life. So to look at the difference between a Zantac and a Marinol prescribed by, you know, a doctor, the side effects aren't there, which is why all of us in these 3 rooms are choosing cannabis. I wouldn't be able to hold a pharmaceutical pill down. I would throw it back up. I have a really hard time holding food down, which is why I'm 35 and 100 pounds. So I beg you, please combine these bills, pass them. People need safe access. My grandmother, I wouldn't want my grandmother walking to some corner and getting a bag for herself right now. You know, Cannabom or what have you. I would rather her go into a store, just like all of you would rather your grandparents or parents to go into a store and purchase something that you know is credible, that you know that you've gotten it from a knowledgeable staff who could explain to you, you know, what to expect or what not to expect. A lady sat up here and referenced sativas and hybrids and indicas. There are a big difference between them all. On top of having wasting syndrome, I have overwhelming anxiety. And if I smoke a sativa, I would not be able to sit here and speak to you guys. I would be in another room in a corner because I wouldn't be able to deal with public. The indicas are what I need. They also assist me with my appetite. The sativas are for people with glaucoma. They reduce the interoptical pressure. So the lady did reference a lot of things in regards to there being different types of the medication. It's not just one, like, you know, the 70s, oh, we're all hippies and get high. There are a lot of different ways that these medicines work for people, and it's not recreational. We're always going to have recreational. They're recreational users of pharmaceutical drugs right now. They go into their mother's cabinets and pull them out and eat them. Those are recreational users. So we're, you know, we can't not sit back and say, okay, well, you know, these might happen, and this might happen, and this might happen, and this might happen, because that would be like banning marriage banning marriage in the sake of preventing divorce. It's just not going to work. You know, we're going to always have people that are going to jump the fence and attempt to do, you know, break the laws, which is why we have lawmakers and police officers and what have you to make sure that those laws are on point. But unless the laws are clear, people like myself and these people end up in jail for small technicalities like the misreading of a word or a comma or a period in the wrong spot. So I urge you guys to please be clear with the language when you pass this, because you've got a lot of residents on your hand, and I also urge you to pass it, because if not, then, you know, people like myself aren't going to be able to be around much longer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Stephen Green, wishing to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 660. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well, thanks. As far as 660 goes, I'm in opposition to that, and that is for several reasons. I don't believe that marijuana is a pharmaceutical or that it should be treated in that manner. I don't think that a lot of the process in that has been thought out. If marijuana was rescheduled, I don't believe it would go into a Schedule 2. And in fact, I don't believe it should be scheduled at all. The American Herbal Product Association recognizes cannabis. You've heard several other people mention remedies. I often mention it the same as garlic or fish oil, because your doctor can recommend you take vitamin C, fish oil, or other products without writing you a prescription for it. The reason they do that is because they're natural products. I've heard a lot about mold and different processes that 660 would put in place to prevent those things. I don't think that that's a realistic problem. And I think that if a company, whether it be a U.S. or a foreign company, wished to produce a Schedule 2 or Schedule 3 form of medical marijuana, it would be accepted today, as GW Pharmaceuticals has done from Britain. They have Sativex and other drugs that are being through the process here in the FDA. So if that was something they wanted to do, there's an outline of how a pharmaceutical company produces a pharmaceutical type of cannabis. So with that being said, I'm in opposition to 660. I don't think it should be voted on. I don't think that it's a legitimate concern. And I think it muddies the waters. As far as 4271, there's things that I would possibly do differently, but overall I'm in agreement that patients need safe access. I don't know if any of you know who I am, but I spent time in jail for marijuana. Later, I was acquitted. In fact, the prosecution dropped the charges, recognizing that I was a legitimate patient and I was acting within the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. That took 10 months. 10 months of my life, all my life savings, everything I could borrow from everyone, fundraisers, and a group of loving people that came together to make it happen. It shouldn't be that hard in America to prove you did nothing wrong. And by continuing this, I feel it's perpetuating that cycle. I know this isn't the judiciary and you can't fix the law problems, but you can clarify things. And I think that is ultimately where I would feel most comfortable, is I shouldn't have spent time in jail. I shouldn't have had my daughter removed. I shouldn't have been tortured and discriminated because I used medical marijuana. In fact, that happened. It's not a joke. It's not a lie. I'm not making it up. You can research it. All I ask is that you don't ignore us. You don't let discrimination happen just because we choose something that most people don't choose. I don't ask other people to use marijuana, and I wouldn't. But in that same respect, I would appreciate people not telling me what to do. I've tried all the pharmaceuticals. I was up to 30 pills a day. None of it was successful. It was a last resort for me. I don't know that it should have to be a last resort, but it was. And with that being said, the oil, the concentrated oil, is where the most medicinal parts of the plant are, whether it be a THC strain or a CBD strain. And to limit that is cruel. And I appreciate the legislation that was brought forward to allow that without smoking. So I definitely support oils, and I appreciate your time. And I'm glad I was able to speak here today. And I hope you guys give this a deep consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Seeing none, thank you, sir. We have about 10 minutes or so, and there's a few other speakers, so I'll ask you to kind of be on deck and limit your testimony. First, we'll have Gershom Avery, who opposes the bill and wishes to speak. After that, on deck, I think this is Cheryl Brown, who opposes the bill and wishes to speak, and after her, Carrie Allen, who opposes the bill, or who doesn't have, nothing's checked off but wishes to speak. We have about 10 minutes, so I just ask that you leave your testimony to about 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm the founder of one of the co-founders of the Cannabis Cancer Project in Michigan. In 2007, after we got the petition signatures turned in, I immediately began teaching people how to make extracts of cannabis for the purpose of treating cancer, to cause the tumors to dissolve and go away. There are now hundreds of people across the state that are using this concentrate to be able to destroy the cancer within their bodies, and they're doing it successfully. I am a cancer patient also. My bladder cancer disappeared under the influence of a combination of THC and CBD in a concentrate form. Concentrates are very, very important for this. I'd like to talk about 660. The other two bills I'm very much in favor of, because it gets medicine into people's hands, people that need it. It gets it to their hands. The 660 is not designed to do that. It's one of the craziest things that I've seen in there is where you have to pass some kind of morals examination to be able to fulfill your prescription. No other drug out there. You can get Oxycontin or anything else without having to go before a morals committee. Good grief, what are you trying to pull off? And in addition to those people who will be expelled because of the morals stuff, apparently children are just as despicable as felons. They're not supposed to use this medicine either. I think that some of this is to try to go along with what the federal government wants, keep it out of the hands of children, keep it away from criminals. But once this 660 would go into place, the intention is to replace the existing Medical Marijuana Act with it. Not in a single step. This will get passed first, and then a couple of years down the line, they'll eliminate the Medical Marijuana Act because the only people using it are the felons. Why? Why? Why can a felon for just this only drug not go to the drugstore and get their prescription filled? Why? Pure cruelty. Another way to dump on criminals. Let's make them suffer. You got cancer? Tough. You're going to die from it because you got a criminal record. That's horrible. That's ex post facto. That's cruel and inhumane. And you're lumping children into it also. Schedule 2 and Schedule 3, the difference between the two of them. Schedule 2, you have to have specific medical conditions it's aimed at. You got none listed. None listed. So after making it a Schedule 2, then you're going to have a bunch of committee meetings to decide what conditions it applies to? The federal government made THC a Schedule 3, so a doctor can prescribe it for whatever he wants.
Sir, just going to ask that you wrap it up a little bit. There are a couple more people who wish to testify.
660 visualizes treating marijuana as if it's a recreational substance instead of a medical substance. That's why people under 18 can't have it. They're treating it the same way as you do alcohol or cigarettes. This is medicine. This is not recreation. Please.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. I ask that the next speaker is Cheryl Brown to speak on SB 660 and opposes the bill. And again, ma'am, if you could just limit it to about 2 minutes.
I will. My name is Cheryl Brown. I was born and raised here in Michigan. I am a patient. I have to have safe access to my medication due to I have seizures. I have 2 forms of cancer, severe nerve damage. I've had 2 open heart surgeries, 11 stents. Seizures are from hell. You know, the 5104 has got to pass. I ingest oil daily. Black mark, whatever you want to say. Arrest me. Pay for my bills. I'm going to show you some pictures of the tropical that was used. I was scalded in Jackson, Michigan, and they let him go. This was 1 month after I applied tropical oil from this gentleman over here, Gersh Avery. This is my scar now. This was done this year. This was my cancer surgery that was done on my leg that was misdiagnosed for 5 years. This is it now. This oil heals. I have to have safe access to my oil, or I will die. I am fighting for my life, and I'm fighting for all these children. Seizures. I wish everybody could have a self-induced seizure and see what happens. I would rather have open heart surgery than a seizure. That's where I'm at. And I will leave it at that. I have every documented proof. I am a Christian. I am a citizen. And God bless y'all.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions?
Nope.
Seeing none.
I have a degree in business communications, and
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here.
God bless.
Next, who wishes to speak on 4271 and 5104 and 660 is Carrie Allen from the Advanced Hydroponic Growers Supply, Phoenix Consultant. And doesn't indicate whether you support or oppose or you're neutral, so if you could indicate that as well. And we have just a couple minutes left. Thank you.
Thank you. I am in support of 5104. I currently work with Paul DeWeese and have so for the last 3 years in helping patients and caregivers obtain certification. One of our biggest things was having our patients and caregivers having a healthy form in order to be able to do that. And our tinctures and oils are of the healthiest form. Eating it, consuming it, versus smoking it is healthier, much healthier for all of our patients, and especially for our pediatrics. As far as Bill 4271, We approved that. The only problem that we really do have with that bill would be it, I believe, still leaves it up to cities and municipalities. Basically, it's at their discretion as to whether or not they allow them. We feel that there should be one per county, in minimum. That would allow for safe access to everyone, and to where they wouldn't have to say, you know, if there's none in the Upper Peninsula, them people don't have to drive all the way down to the Lower Peninsula. Just overall, I think we believe that there should be one in every county. I apologize, I'm nervous. As far as 660 goes, we are not in support of in any way, shape, or form. It discriminates in many shapes, forms, and fashions, we do feel. We don't feel that medical marijuana should ever go to a Schedule II. If anything, it should go to 3 or not at all. Limiting patients as far as pediatrics, 18 and above, that's our current law. Everyone gets sick, whether you're born sick or whether you're dying sick. Everyone gets sick. So everyone should have access to any form of medication. And 660 does not allow for that. And we don't support it in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. And I will pass it off to Chairman Kopp.
Okay, we have gotten through all of the cards that were submitted wishing to... Gave one in? Okay. I have cards here that are marked not wishing to speak, which I'll read in, and then we're going to proceed with a vote on the bills. Okay. I do apologize. It was my hope to get through every single person. We have missed a couple, but I hope that all will agree we've taken a diligent effort to hear from as many people as possible on all sides of the issue. I'm going to read in a few cards now. Not wishing to speak in support of House Bill 4271 and 5104 is Shelley Weisberg, representing the ACLU of Michigan. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill of bills 4271 and 5104, Noah Smith, representing the Criminal Defense Attorneys of Michigan. Boxes unchecked, this may be one of our cards, but in support of House Bill 5104, Sarah Gadwinski. Okay. I just had the boxes unchecked, and in an effort to get members across the street for session, we're going to have to move forward. Thank you. Not wishing to speak, neutral on Senate Bill 660, Eric Rohde, representing the Michigan Pharmacist Association. Not wishing to speak in support of House Bills 4271 and 5104, Carrie Pickett. Okay. With that, as we did have discussed at the beginning of the meeting, we have substitutes for each of the bills. We will start with House Bill 4271. We do have the H3 that was described at the beginning of the meeting. Would ask for a motion to adopt substitute H3 for House Bill 4271. Vice Chair Kesto, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Representatives Kesto.
Yes.
Heisey.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
LaFontaine.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Lipton.
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes.
Clemente.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yes votes to substitute adopted.
Okay, and we do have one amendment for House Bill 4271. Representative Irwin?
Yeah, and everyone should see that amendment in front of them, and it relates to a question I'd asked earlier in the committee hearing. But if I could clarify with our friends from LSB, my amendment would more clearly define what a seedling is for purposes of the act. But my understanding is that in the substitute, and these have been moving kind of fast, in the substitute, the language authorizing the provisioning centers to cultivate debate has been taken out, which would probably make my amendment moot. So if I could get a clarification on that language being taken out, then I'd be happy to withdraw the amendment. Is that the understanding of the committee? So I'm not finding the definition for manufacturer anymore, which was in the original.
Okay, we're hearing cultivation has been removed.
Okay, well, with that, then I'll withdraw the amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
So noted. There's nothing further. We would ask for a motion to report the H3, House Bill 4271. So moved by Representative Jacobson. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Representatives Kesto?
Yes.
Heisey?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Lipton?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yes votes. House Bill 4271 is reported with recommendation as substitute H3.
Thank you. Next, we have the H2 substitute for House Bill 5104. Would ask for a motion to adopt the substitute. So moved by Vice Chair Kesto. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Cotter?
Yes.
Representatives Kesto?
Yes.
Heisey?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Lipton?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yes votes and substitute is adopted.
And on a motion to report House Bill 5104, do we have a motion? So moved by Vice Chair Kesto. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Cotter?
Yes.
Representatives Kesto?
Yes.
Heisey?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Lipton?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yes votes. House Bill 5104 is reported with recommendation as substitute H2.
Okay, thank you. Next on the H1 substitute to Senate Bill 660, is there a motion to adopt? So moved. Vice Chair Kesto. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Cotter?
Yes.
Representatives Kesto?
Yes.
Heisey?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Lipton?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yes votes. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. Just received an amendment. Representative Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My amendment relates to a concern that I raised in the previous hearing, which is that in Senate Bill 660, it would require any active Michigan medical marijuana patient who has their qualifying card and all of that in order to relinquish their card with the state and in order to have access to the provisions of Senate Bill 660. So given that our citizens have paid the state $100 for this registration card, it seems unfair to me to take it away from them or to force them to pay $100 again and go through that process and pay a doctor again for a new recommendation in order for them to have access to the system that was supported strongly by our citizens in 2008. So what my amendment seeks to do is seeks to remove the requirement that individuals relinquish their access to the current Michigan Medical Marijuana Act system in order to have access to the system created by Senate Bill 660. I would love to not charge citizens twice for the same access to the same system. And I would point out to the committee members, if you haven't been watching this closely, the revenue into Lara as a result of citizens paying for their medical marijuana cards is far in excess of the cost of administering the program. And so, we should probably think about lowering those costs sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, the least we could do, I think, is not require citizens to pay twice or require citizens to relinquish their access to the system that the citizens approved in order to have access to this system and to try this system out that's being created by 660. So that's my interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Irwin. I'm just thinking this through as you discuss it and haven't had a lot of time to do that yet, but I guess just one concern that would come to mind, I'm going to vote no on the amendment just due to the fact that I haven't been able to work this through the process, but I'm just thinking about a concern about double dipping, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. If someone had a card through the MMA, through the current system, if they also had a card through the pharmaceutical grade. One question that comes to my mind, would there be thereby an ability to obtain 2.5 ounces here, 2.5 ounces there? That's one concern that I have. I mean, we don't have to debate the entire amendment right here, but I'm going to vote no for that, but certainly willing to further consider it.
Sure. If you allow me to respond to that concern, nothing in my amendment would change the total weight that anyone can have of usable marijuana, dried product, oils, or anything. All it would do is change their access to the two systems. And if what we're talking about here is providing more choice to patients, then certainly my amendment would give them access to both systems so that they could choose which medicine worked better for them, rather than forcing them to pick a lane. Should they choose to move to the pharmaceutical grade and decide that they don't like it, it seems that maybe we should let them back into the state program, certainly without having to charge them twice for the same registration card.
Okay. Is there a question? Representative Johnson, anything?
So I'm trying to understand this a little bit. Would this still, would this only stop them from having to register the second time? And I guess if you could walk me through the mechanics just one more time on how that works.
Yes, Representative Earl.
No, if I may, through the chair, the current system is that someone can get a doctor's recommendation, which they usually have to pay some money for, and then they pay the state $100 to get a registration for the Michigan medical marijuana system as administered by the state. That costs them $100, and it lasts for 2 years. They have to re-up it every 2 years because of the changes we made in 2012. What 660 says is that in order for them to have access to this new system of pharmaceutical grade marijuana that 660 creates, they have to relinquish their access and their card that they have with the state. And what my amendment would do is it would strike that provision. It would allow them to keep their access to the state system and try out access to the system created by 660. And if they decided that they wanted to go back to the medicine that was provided through their caregiver, they could do that without having to pay the state a new registration fee, get a new doctor's recommendation, and go through that whole licensure process with Laura again.
I do understand the concern. I think it's certainly worth discussing further. I'd like to do that as we move forward. And on a motion by Representative Irwin on the amendment, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Chair.
No.
Representatives Kesto?
No.
Izey?
No.
Jacobson?
No.
Johnson?
No.
LaFontaine?
Pass.
Leonard?
No.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Lipton?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes.
Clemente?
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yes votes, 6 no votes, and 2 passes. The amendment is not adopted.
Okay, and do we have a motion to report the H1 of Senate Bill 660? So moved by Representative Jacobson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Representatives Kesto?
Yes.
Izey?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Lipton?
Pass.
Irwin?
No.
Clemente?
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 8 yes votes, 1 nay vote, and 2 passes. Senate Bill 660 is reported with recommendation as substitute H1.
Thank you very much. There being no further business to come before the committee, we will stand adjourned.